Welcome to the Market Meter podcast. I know it's been a while since we've recorded. I think this is our first episode for this year. So we're really excited to get back into this. There's so much that has happened. I hope we'll be able to squeeze all the major headlines or things that have caught our attention, within this particular podcast. But the rest of the team, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Of course, it's been quite a while, but I'm glad to be back. I'm looking forward to an exciting episode.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Abu. I'm also excited to be here. Back to you, Tony.
Thanks, man. So I think I don't know where to even start this year, but just to give us a bit of more structures as maybe as we go forward, we can maybe start with the macro and then we go down. So yeah, so I think if you're talking about macro-wise, the biggest thing we know that has happened this year, or at least that anyone who has access to the internet knows, is the Russia-Ukraine tensions that have been going on since since when? How long have they been going on for now?
Around February, March, up until now.
Yeah, all that time, man. And I think when news first broke, everyone was like, "Oh, this is terrible." I think most people have not experienced. We've not had a major, kind of geopolitical tension in the last couple of years. So people, by that shock of, oh my God, this is happening. And then the longer it has gone for, I think the more people have become desensitized. Now it's almost like people have moved on, which is, I find to be very, very weird. So first of all, like, what are your thoughts on this conflict? What are your 2 cents on it, just generally?
Or if I could go first, I could say that what is more interesting to me is that you find that if you look at USD ruble, you find that it has gone down primarily. But if you look at it fundamentally, you find that Russia actually has linked its currency towards gold. I think it's around 5,000 rubles towards an ounce of gold, something around that figure.
On that particular issue of gold, I think personally, as much as the Kremlin have been talking about linking the ruble to gold, I think the reason you've seen the ruble recover so strongly is not because they're linked to gold. It's because I don't know if you know this, but a couple of weeks ago, the Russians said they will only sell gas in rubles. So
Exactly.
yeah, before that they used to do that in dollars or in euros, but now they want any country that trades with them to pay in rubles. So a lot of these countries have been forced to open ruble accounts with Russian banks, so that they can even have access to rubles and be able to make the payments. So the recovery you've seen in the ruble, I don't think it's about the gold. It's just the demand that has come as a result of Russia deciding to trade gas in rubles exclusively, or to settle gas in rubles. But it's definitely interesting because, I think with the sanctions, when the sanctions first hit, I think you saw the ruble was sliding as money, capital flight. As much as they closed their financial markets and halted trading, there was still an outflow of capital. But immediately they announced that they're going to be, settling these commodity exports. They're going to be settling them in rubles. We started seeing the reversal. The only question is, enough countries buying Russia's commodities to actually end up help them to sidestep all these sanctions? Because I know India was buying commodities from them, China too, to some extent, and So by some countries buying, commodities from them cheaply means that they're sidestepping these sanctions. The sanctions become less effective. Um, it's going to be very interesting to see how the US navigates this going forward, because as the hegemon, you expect them to try to protect the current petrodollar system, where a lot of these commodity transactions, cross-border trades are settled in dollars. I was talking with Rikard about this. Over time, there have been many global reserve currencies that have come and gone. People usually ask this question every couple of years when the dollar is selling off, but it's still worth exploring the fact or the question whether the dollar is losing its global reserve currency status, or does the settling commodity transactions in other currencies reduce the demand for the dollar or not? But definitely, it's going to be interesting to watch for the next couple of decades.
Yeah. Actually, for me, I'll just pick up where you left off, Anto. For my faithful WhatsApp status followers, I remember asking that question. Are we witnessing the end of the petrodollar system? Especially after Russia made that demand, and then also about a month ago, Bloomberg reported that Russia was seeking to make demands for its wheat exports, that payments be done in rubles. And Russia is like the largest exporter of wheat in the world, yeah? So I feel like these guys are playing chess. For their geopolitical interests and military interests with the Ukraine and against the US. I think they're also trying to seek out some economic interests in the long run. And you can be sure that this ruble arrangement is likely to stay. I don't think they're reverting to the USD system anytime soon, or rather the petrodollar system. So I think, and I've asked these guys question. I've asked guys this question before, rather. I think Russia and China are playing chess over here. We're not seeing the bigger plan they have, but just what you've pointed out about this conversation happening every few years. I look at the US as a country as it is. I mean, yeah, it's a big economy, and let's just be honest, the dollar is a very strong currency. Yeah. From transactions with Aramco oil, I mean, almost all oil exports are done in dollars, and not only oil exports and imports, etc., but even settlement just of international trade. Almost all of it is done in USD. When we're dealing with the IMF, these international financial institutions, settlements are mainly done in USD. So the dollar is still quite strong, and the US economy is, if we get into the details, it's something very hard to topple. But I think China and Russia, in a sense, they have their own agenda, and they want to sort of remove the US as this sole super power or something of the sort. Because for them, I think they just believe it's their time to come up. The Chinese guy, I'm forgetting his name.
Xi Jinping.
Yeah. That guy is ambitious. He's very ambitious, and you can see what he's done with China. Putin, on the other hand, I mean, who doesn't know about Putin? Putin did a whole video telling the world that if anyone tries to interfere, you'll face consequences that you've never experienced in your entire lifetime. And we had so many memes, of course, on Twitter and the likes, just talking about the fact that we can't go toe to toe with Russia. So my point is this: the two leaders of these countries are very ambitious, very strategic. So what is it not to say that the petrodollar system, and rather the US dollar being like the sort of de facto world reserve currency coming to an end is not close. That's why I look at this conflict and I think it just goes beyond geopolitical interests. They have economic interests that they will end up achieving in the long run.
Yeah, I think with China, as much as they've called out Russia on the invasion, they still, I think, they're playing both sides. I think China is in the best position geopolitically speaking, because they could literally go either way. This is literally a chance for them to to make alliances that might last them over the next few decades. So I think it's going to be very disrespectful, and this is something we can talk about for the entire episode. So I think we'll move on for the sake of discussion, since we have so much to cover. Geopolitically, again, I think we were talking about this a few moments ago. I think if you mentioned it, the Central African Republic made Bitcoin legal tender. Of course, not only Bitcoin, but they also have, I think, they currently use the CFA franc. So Bitcoin will be with the legal tender beside the CFA franc. It's a good development, especially if you're, in the crypto space or generally in the blockchain space. And even as you see these multilateral institutions, the like of IMF, they dismiss cryptocurrencies. You saw even they called out El Salvador when they made Bitcoin legal tender. As much as they're against it, the more countries adopt it, sooner or later they just have to capitulate. That's what I think. Personally, I don't know about all the rest of the people in the team, but I think in terms of adoption, as far as crypto adoption is concerned, we at a very good point, and I think there's some cryptocurrencies are currently trading at a very good discount. As in, if you truly believe in the ability of blockchain technology to, take up more utility within society and how we transact and how we do all these different things, I think it's a very good time to really get into cryptocurrencies and get them at a discount, because I think Bitcoin below 40,000, it's a good discount for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know crypto or blockchain generally is you also, that's also your man of your degen, your fellow degen. Yeah, so what do you think of this one?
A true believer in Web3. What I would say is this, and what I think guys also need to understand who are listening to the podcast in terms of Bitcoin becoming legal tender and its implications. Money has its functional uses, yeah, and one of them, of course, is a means of payment. And when I look at Bitcoin in that regard, it has not completely managed to fulfill that function of being a means of payment. It is a store of value, of course, yeah. And we've seen it. I mean, you've just talked about it being at a discount, and the predictions from Goldman Sachs to JP Morgan, these are reputable American investment banks. I mean, these guys have talked about the fact that this thing is going to go to 100K. So yes, it is a store of value, no doubt. But as a means of payment, it's a very big risk for countries to take up. Of course, I'm not entirely against it, but I mean, with these fluctuating prices, man, it's crazy. Yeah, the forex market works in a sense of supply and demand, yeah. But it doesn't have the fluctuations that Bitcoin has. That one day it's at. I've actually, just when you talked about it, I just decided to just get that the chart of how it's been performing the last month. I mean, at the beginning of the month, it was at 5.4 million Kenya shillings, and it's hit lows of 4.4. So it's gone down by 1 million, yeah. In a span of 3 weeks, which is that's not little money, yeah. To be honest, yeah. So I think as a means of payment, it's still not yet at that level, but that's essentially what Bitcoin was supposed to fulfill. In fact, I was listening to some. You'll be shocked. It was on TikTok actually. So some lady was being asked about what she thinks about Bitcoin, and she says, you know, it was supposed to be a decentralized means of payment. That's exactly what it was supposed to be, and transfer of money. But these crypto exchanges came and they saw they could make some commissions, and it even lost that decentralized nature, because now the crypto exchanges, the reality is that they are centralized in nature.
Yeah.
You can find out who owns this, but people don't even trade from the wallet to wallet, that peer-to-peer transaction, because they're just using the crypto exchanges for the transfer of money, or rather not even transfer of money. It's like just buying shares within the Bitcoin community, for a certain amount of money which fluctuates. Yeah. So as legal tender, as I'm saying, the long and short of it, Bitcoin was supposed to, was designed rather to achieve that specific function of becoming the new money. But the reality is that's not the function it's currently serving. And so that makes it a bit more complex in terms of its adoption as legal tender. But nonetheless, it's sort of a step in the right direction because it shows that the governments, or rather the experts, economic experts, financial experts, who are starting to see the potential, what you talked about, blockchain, yeah, the potential of blockchain to improve transparency. I mean, this thing can really be key in ensuring, like, even things like money laundering are combated in the right way, and the likes. But of course, we know there've been issues with Bitcoin and the dark web and the likes. So that would be my 2 cents, specifically on this issue of legal tender coming up in the Central African Republic and the use of Bitcoin.
Yeah, Rykert?
Yeah, I'll say that if you find that Bitcoin is a store of value, governments won't be able to administer their duties in a way, so there won't be any form of government. And where the forex market do moves by supply and demand, but you find also the central bank influences the market itself, whereby they impose in terms of, it can never be free floating, they can be fixed, they can always be managed in a way, if I may put it. So I do believe that technology is going to take place in the coming years, Web3 and all that. But I also do believe, in my own view, that Bitcoin will forever go down.
I have absolutely the opposite point of view. As you've said, I don't think Bitcoin diminishes the role of government, and if it does, it only does for I'd say authoritarian regimes, or let's say, I think you all know, like, China banned crypto last year, and China is really huge on capital control, so they like controlling
communism.
The not necessarily communism. This capital controls are not a communist thing. There's some democracies that have had, or even do have, capital controls, but particularly China is very keen on capital controls. They like keenly controlling the supply of money and everything. And I think that's why they even banned crypto, because it meant that people were transacting in a way that the government could not keep track of. As you know, Bitcoin is a public network, so it's not necessarily controlled or owned by a government. As you've said, governments are constantly debasing money. They're printing more and more money. Every country is at this point. And one thing you can be assured of is your money, fiat currency, is constantly losing value. And that's why I think crypto, especially Bitcoin, is an escape. It's a way for the average person to take back their individual sovereignty. Because now, if you're paid in dollars, you have dollars in your pockets, but there's no way you can stop Jerome Powell from printing more dollars. But if I own Bitcoin, I know there can only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in supply ever. So I'm assured that there's no one out there who's reducing the value of the asset that I'm owning. And I think I agree with Abu that, cryptos, as particularly Bitcoin, has not necessarily been a unit of exchange, but it's been used more as a store of value. So it has been more of gold rather than than a currency, and that's true. But so there's this investment firm. It's run by, there's a lady, I don't know if you know her. She's called Cathy Wood. It's called
investment.
Forever losing.
So I can, by the way, right now they're on the verge of underperforming the S&P. Basically, they've erased all the gains they ever made since the fund was started. Like, basically, they're when you buy growth stocks in such an environment, of course you're going to underperform.
Can I cut you short, Tony?
No, I want to put my thoughts out there.
Okay.
So ARK Invest, they have a projection of that Bitcoin will get to 1 million. I'm not saying I agree that Bitcoin will get to 1 million by 2030, but I just want to share with you the logic at how they arrived at such a valuation, just to give you an impression of how you can, or key metrics you can keep track of to to kind of track the growth in the crypto space. One of the assumptions they've made is more countries having Bitcoin in their reserves by 2030. And I think we're already starting to see that. We've talked about El Salvador, Central African Republic. I think also the UAE are doing something in terms of regulation for DeFi, not even just crypto. They've gone further. It's about DeFi. So there are a ton of countries that are starting to warm up to blockchain technology in general. Secondly, corporate treasuries. Most of these multinational companies, they usually they have revenues and expenditures in different currencies depending on the jurisdictions where they operate. And as Bitcoin grows in popularity and people have more of it, you might get to a point where we start seeing now they start settling some of their transactions in crypto. You might find them starting to have maybe 5% or 10% of their treasury or their treasury holdings in crypto, so that they can easily transact. I think we're already starting to see payment processors, PayPal, I think Venmo, they're starting to provide a chance for their users to access crypto services. So you don't necessarily have to leave your traditional financial service provider for you to get crypto services. You can get them easily. Visa, MasterCard. We're seeing all these, the big banks in the US also warming up to crypto. They're opening crypto divisions. They're going into the metaverse. I think JP Morgan have gone into the metaverse. So as far as adoption is concerned, anyone who doesn't see the signs around us is either willfully ignorant or they just do not care, plainly. I actually do believe adoption is going to rise, especially now as people lose faith in governments. You see the shilling is now at what, 116 against the dollar. And this is not only a Kenyan situation, this is cuts across the board. Most countries in the world, the currency is actually being debased at a very rapid rate. So for me, I see crypto as an escape for the individual to say, hey, I'm going to take back control of my money or the value of my money. As much as crypto has been trading like stocks lately, over the long term, I see it staying even past regulation. But I doubt they're going something like, let's say the US is going to completely ban them. Raika, you can go ahead. I've gotten whatever I wanted to off my chest.
You should be convinced by now.
You do know that me and you can argue about the cryptocurrencies, the Web3. We still debate in an individual level. But what I love about this group is that we agree to disagree. So we try to find ideas that will create value for our listeners, also for ourselves in the long run, because if people don't realize this, is that we talk about this, but in the way we also pushing our money in a way that we also make profit. So it's not necessarily we're just making this podcast to have fun, but we are also doing this to also make money for ourselves. So this is what I love about the Mathemeta podcast. But in the view it at hand, I feel like I have an argument. Abu, on you, Bitcoin is a store of value.
You want me like to bring out how that value comes about?
Yeah.
Hey, this is very exciting. I think this will convince you more than ever.
Trust me, I will deconvince you.
Let's start from this point that Anto talked about. Bitcoin has a maximum amount. There are only 21 million of them. And when you look at what the first currency ever in the world was, like the first proper currency was, it was actual gold, So it's not countries. You remember there was a time where we would fix the value of the currency to the gold deposits you have, yeah? So there's a time when instead of fixing to those gold deposits, it was actual gold that people were exchanging. And that's what sort of gave value to it, because it was rare. When guys were looking for what can make currency, they need something that's rare, but something that was also easily malleable, something that could be transported. It wasn't too dense. It could be transported easily from one place to another. And that's when these civilizations back then turned to gold. So talking about that rarity, this is where the rarity of Bitcoin comes in. First of all, is the fact that it has a limited amount. Secondly, just as it was not easy to get gold, because gold, have you ever seen gold mines like in South Africa?
No.
Those things they're quite deep. It's not something like you just hoop and you already have your gold. It's a very elaborate approach, or rather like very methodical, and the shafts are very deep. I'm sure maybe you've heard of course, gold mines collapsing. For example, even here in Kenya, I think there was one that collapsed sometime last year. Yes. So when it comes to Bitcoin, there's also its own difficulty because the process of producing Bitcoin is of course digital. And the first one, or rather how it takes place, is the first algorithm is very simple. It's just 1 + 1 = 2. Does not need too much processing power. Any computer, your laptop could do that. So the first Bitcoin that was produced back in 2009 was so simple to undertake. But the how the system was designed, and this is where the challenge comes in, is that these algorithms become much more complex as time goes by, and now a simple laptop like mine cannot process, or rather cannot mine those coins. And that's why you hear about guys having entire warehouses dedicated to mining Bitcoin. And you see also, as they are mining that Bitcoin, the amount that is being produced is not at now 1 Bitcoin. It's also halving with time. So the amount of Bitcoin being produced also with time is less and less. So it makes the coin even much more rare. And you see, as I'm saying, not everyone has the capabilities to be able to mine that coin. It needs a lot of processing power, and that's why those guys have some heavy machinery, some proper servers. The difficulty of mining Bitcoin and then getting into the market, and now because it's becoming more rare and rare, or rather the price goes increasing. The challenge, though, as we noted earlier on, that is that it fluctuates. It's just that during the pandemic period, for one reason or the other, Bitcoin became sort of mainstream because people knew about it, and it had reached some certain highs, and then it just dipped at some point a few years ago, and I think guys just forgot about it. But then the pandemic period really brought up these conversations of the world and things changing, people working from home. I mean, now offices, guys are permanently working from home, for example. And I remember even when I was doing my research on cryptocurrency, I came across a quote from Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, Bill Gates talked about the fact that we are unprepared for a pandemic. That was, I think, in 2015. And of course, the pandemic came in 2020. But there's something he predicted in 1994. And he actually said that banking is necessary, but banks are not. Basically, what he was trying to tell us is we're coming to a point where digital currency will be the way of the world. And we'll be able to transfer money, maybe like peer-to-peer, or rather like maybe through a service like M-Pesa. So when you look at something like cryptocurrency and I mean, specifically Bitcoin, and how it's mined and all that, and the way the world is now changing at this moment, when you look at countries like China that are already doing like completely cashless transactions in entire cities, this is why Bitcoin has its value. Plus, there's a lot of speculation about it. So the speculation also adds to its value to a certain degree. So that's why I would say Bitcoin is a store of value. Plus, not only that, it's a technological innovation that has never been done before. So that's another point that gives it value. But the main thing, as I'm saying, is the amount of Bitcoin that can be produced and the difficulty of mining it. I hope that gives you now a bit of clarity.
Insight,
on why we consider it as a store of value.
Oh, the points I agree. I've noted down a lot of stuff. So from my end, I'll be open-minded. But I'm still for the view of traditional in terms of investments. Tony, back to you.
I think just for our listeners' sake, they also need to understand other cryptocurrencies also operate fundamentally different, apart from those that maybe rely on the Bitcoin core like software network. Because Ethereum is mined differently. Some like Ripple are already pre-mined, so all the coins were released into the market, and people are just trading the coins as they are. I don't know if they're being released slowly for Ripple or they're all released at once.
You brought up a very interesting point. I think we can next week, our episode next week will purely be on crypto, or not necessarily crypto, but blockchain technology. So
Yeah.
we'll get a bit more into that. This was just an overview, but you can clearly tell that Abraham and I are already, we're maximalists. We are
I
Bitcoin
understand.
maximalists.
I'm the contrarian.
Utachwa nyuma bana.
We're actually the contrarians if you think about it. Yeah, I think the one thing people usually get wrong is if you advocate for crypto, you're completely against traditional assets. No,
Yeah.
you can be pro crypto and you still have your stock portfolio, you own bonds, you own all these other traditional asset classes. It's not either or. It's just saying crypto, it should be part of your portfolio. That's what you're saying.
Record buyer Satoshis.
I'm selling for a reason.
Yeah, well, I think so we've covered crypto, we've talked about geopolitics. I think we'll be doing our listeners a great disservice if we don't talk about the man of the year. You know who.
I hope he'll be running for president in 2024.
This dude should run for president, man. Elon Musk, man.
In fact, let's just even start from this point. Elon is a big cryptocurrency supporter.
Mm-hmm.
The guy sees the future. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I think. Whoa. By the way, when it comes to Musk, you don't even know what to talk about. Are we talking about EVs? Are we talking crypto? Are we talking Twitter? Are we talking Solar City? Are we talking about SpaceX?
Can I go forward to say something?
Neuralink.
Can I go forward to say something?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
In terms of Tesla,
mm-hmm.
I tried to do some valuation a while back. To me, it felt like it was around lower. Where is it right now? Because I felt like he's more taking opportunity because he's the richest person in the world, trying to take advantage of the price volatility and all that. Not being a sadist, but just to say it in that I don't think Elon Musk deserves to be the richest person in the world in terms of capital markets and valuation perspective.
Yeah. Well, I have. Are you taking this on Shulai?
I need to chime in, Apo. There's a reason I want to disagree with Raikard. Mm-hmm. I would agree with Raikard, and I had this conversation, I think, with you, Anto, where I was trying to argue that Tesla is overvalued. Mm-hmm. But I've come to
not overpriced.
Overpriced, yeah. But yeah. You guys know Kevin O'Leary. Is it O'Leary or Larry, the businessman?
Oh yeah, the shark.
Yeah. One day I came across a random video on YouTube because I follow him, where he was saying his son told him Tesla is actually not a vehicle company; it's a data company.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to now just do my own research into it, and I even shared the article again to my faithful WhatsApp status viewers. You might have seen it, but in that article, Forbes and there's another article I came across. They really break down why Tesla is a data company. When you see them putting all these nice products on the screens and the self-driving, that self-driving is happening. It's sending data back to Tesla, and they're using that data to improve their vehicles. That fundamental value of Tesla. And of course, yes, it's a green company, yeah. But at the heart of Tesla, what makes Tesla what it is not really the vehicles, it's the data. And actually, it was mind-blowing is when I realized maybe the price is not as high. Actually, that price is an accurate reflection. Tesla is the future of driving because, guys are really talking about self-driving cars and, of course, use of artificial intelligence, yeah, in driving vehicles, removing human weakness from the steering wheel. So when you look at it from that perspective, I think Tesla's price is just about right.
Yeah, and also
getting into Tesla, I agree with that.
First of all, the Tesla is beyond. It's not just about cars. There's so many unexplored revenue streams. I don't know if you listened to the last earnings call, but they're projecting revenues for robotaxis. They're expecting by 2025, I don't know, they have 1 million or something robotaxis in the US. And actually, that's the reason ARK Invest. So before they released the last earnings, and talked about the revenue and growth that they expect from robo taxis. ARK Invest price target for Tesla 2026 5-year price target was around 3,200. But immediately they released projections for robo taxis. They raised the price target to $4,600. So basically, Tesla is not even in its final form. So if people are buying it now, they're not just buying because it's the market leader when it comes to EVs. They're buying because there's so many new market opportunities and revenue streams that could potentially arise from Tesla's market leadership and whatever they're already doing currently. So as far as, and by the way, everyone who has bet against Tesla over the past decade has failed terribly. That should tell you something. they've failed terribly. So for me, as far as Tesla is concerned, I am honestly also pro EV. I believe EV is one of the main technologies that are going to really take on shape in the next few decades, especially as we figure out the battery technology side of things, because I think that's the only constraint to EV adoption. And I do believe, as in Tesla is it's a stock definitely worth owning.
Because
just a moment. And also, it's not counted. Just present your argument. Whoever is listening will tell whatever makes sense to them.
Finish.
When tech started, people didn't know how to value Facebook. People were dismissing. They were saying this is just a thing for people to talk. Like, how do you even value such a business? Because they didn't understand how vital data was. So these social media platforms, once they started monetizing the data and everything, it became a completely different thing. And I think it's the same case with EVs. We don't know how to effectively value them now. And they usually say if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So people are already stuck in a certain mindset of valuing certain businesses, or let's say car businesses, the same way you'd value a Ford or a GM. And by the way, which are both actually really want to get into the AV space. So I think it's too early to even value it. So whoever is buying it now, we're not buying it based on current valuation metrics for such a company. You're buying it based on the potential future implications of EV technology and the benefits that Tesla will get as the market leader in that space.
So for me, I'm more of old school. Tony is old school plus new school. Abu is more of everything. He's more interested in everything. So to my perspective is that, I've listened to your point, Tony Webb is saying about how to go into detail, but I do agree. You have a point.
Yeah. So I think with Elon Musk, we've only scratched the surface talking about Tesla. This one I've been itching to talk about this. Him as a Twitter man. Yeah, Abu, I know you're an avid Twitter user.
I don't tweet much though. I just retweet and like.
yeah, but I know that's your realm, man. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? Can you just give us first of all a breakdown of what's been going on in case the listeners don't know, and then give your 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, Twitter has had its fair share of issues, and I think corporate politics. I think we all know that Jack Dorsey left last year, as CEO. But still, he has quite a big chunk. I mean, 2% sounds little, but considering the size of Twitter and its valuation, 2% is not a little stake in it. Yeah. So, there was a tweet that Elon Musk made about 5 years ago. Not actually a tweet. Someone tweeted at him and told him he should buy Twitter. He should buy the platform. And he just said it jokingly, like, yeah, he's gonna buy it up. But I think that guy was serious about it. And 5 years later, we've seen what happened during the 2020 election in the US when Trump was censored. And just before 2020, around 2018 to 2020 now, there was a lot of talk about how Silicon Valley tech companies were very left-leaning. They are more liberal in terms of the political ideology and political leaning. So a lot of voices that on the right side of politics, and the US specifically, the Republicans and the rest, they ended up getting censored time after time after time. So we have this guy Elon Musk here who also makes some very crazy tweets at times. I remember there was a time he like took the price of Bitcoin to a crazy level, or that the Dogecoin, whatever, fiasco. Also, he's had issues with the SEC about his own company, where he makes tweets and it somehow affects the price. So I think when all these things were happening, Musk probably started looking at Twitter as a potential place where he could also end up getting censored, maybe. I don't know if he was being genuine about packaging it as free speech, but I think he also had his own motives in the long run. And we got shocked like 2-3 weeks ago when it just emerged that with some SEC filings that the guy has bought 9% of Twitter. And thereafter, that's when we started hearing the rumors that he wants to buy Twitter. There are also some fundamentals about Twitter. I don't know if Rikard, Ama, you have followed up on it, but Twitter was actually making losses. When he came with the offer, and it was also like a premium on what most of the shareholders had either purchased it at or probably gotten at, like maybe the CEO, the current CEO, considering maybe there's like some sort of, what are they called? These employment beneficial whatever schemes, like able to get. I'm a lawyer and I'm forgetting the term.
ESOP.
You get my point. Yeah, ESOP. But there's another word for them. So yeah, with all that happening, he made the offer to buy Twitter, being financed, I think by, was it JP Morgan or Wells Fargo? Wells Fargo?
Yeah, JP Morgan.
It wasn't Wells Fargo, eh?
Yeah, it was JP Morgan.
Yeah, JP Morgan. I think he got some private equity firms on his side. On cash to be able to finance it, because I don't think he had the 44 billion, of course, ready like this. That's a lot of money. Yeah, but that's where we are today. So it's not going to be a public company anymore. It's being delisted, which is also its own entire process, and it goes fully private. So I don't know how he's going to go about it, because if he's purchasing it himself and he owns it 100%, man, that's a bit too much power for one man to handle. So be sure that American Congress, especially the Democrats, they're coming after him, most definitely. And if they can block this transaction from taking place, they'll block it.
Yeah, I think I saw AOC. She tweeted something in connection to that. Basically, the liberals are pretty pissed at this whole, Musk. First of all, as you said, I think Twitter has had really a challenge monetizing compared, let's say, to Facebook,
Google,
TikTok. Yeah, the main problem has been that the main challenge has been Twitter has not attracted as large an audience as, let's say, Facebook or Instagram. Yeah. And we find advertisers, they opt for those other platforms because you have a larger reach than Twitter. That's usually been the main challenge for Twitter. And I think they released earnings. Was it there? They released earnings last week. They missed earnings expectations, but the daily active users actually increased. So it's going to be very interesting to see, what if this deal ends up going through, what Musk's stewardship will do for the company.
Actually, just to chime in there, when you talk about Facebook, Instagram versus Twitter, I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was Elon Musk or Bill Gates or someone who said it. Just one of these very notable American figures who said that Twitter is the public town square for the global village. And I think that's what the challenge for Twitter has been, even in terms of monetization and what you're talking about, the ads. Twitter is it's an intellectual place, but it's also this place for memes and humor and the likes. It's a very interesting mix, and I think that's why whoever said that quote referred to it as the public town square, because man, you can be involved in the most serious of discussions in the Twitter spaces, and the tweet soon after is about it's really what happened maybe at 1824 recently. I don't know if you've been seeing that, but there have been some jokes over some doctor or something of the sort. And then the tweet after is from an economist like David D, breaking down why the Kenyan economy is the state it's at, you know.
Yeah.
So Twitter is such an interesting dynamic, and maybe I think that's why Musk, as I'm saying, it might have been genuine intention. He was looking at Twitter being a public company, and with public companies, there's a lot of pressure to deliver to the shareholders. So these are people who can drastically change how the platform is in order to get profits and please the shareholders, because that's what the shareholders are. We invested money in your company so that we can get a profit. I mean, the hedge funds and the likes can kill your company if you're not careful. So considering all that, so it's better we take it private so that this platform remains the public town square and doesn't lose its meaning. Because I've had even like Instagram right now. I left Instagram like 6 years ago, but people say like it's become a proper like e-commerce site. You can't use ads. You can't have businesses. It's not the Instagram maybe that was there in 2015, even before we had the Instagram stories. You know, just post a photo, guys like it and comment. End of story.
Yeah. So I think, by the way, I don't know if you've been actively keeping up with stocks, but Tesla has been selling off the whole of last week because Musk's buyout is about $44 billion. About half of that is financed by JP Morgan, a bunch of banks, and I think some funds also, some investment funds also. But the 20.5 million of that money comes from basically he was planning to borrow against his Tesla stock. So immediately the news broke. First of all, initially when he announced his 9.2% stake, Tesla sold off because people knew Musk, all his money is tied up in Tesla stock. For him to buy Twitter, it means he has to sell off his Tesla stock. And last week we saw that. I think he sold about 8.4 billion worth, and he tweeted that he's not going to sell anymore. But he sold part of his Tesla, stock to finance the Twitter buyout. But there's some investors have been expressing concern, like maybe he's going to be distracted, he has too much on his plate. But we'll definitely see how it plays out. It's going to be very interesting.
This guy runs SolarCity, he runs SpaceX, he runs Tesla. Yeah, he has a lot on his plate, but that's why guys hire boards of directors. That's why guys nominate rather people to sit on their boards, and that's why they hire CEOs. You get the best in the game. Because I mean, at that level of being a shareholder, as I'm saying, you may not be too concerned about how the objectives are implemented. For you, the bottom line is that the objective is implemented. Shareholders can be a bit detached because they've reached a level where the money can speak for them, or their reputation and status can speak for them. So, until if you're a good CEO, you go and implement the goals that the board has put for you, the person that nominated the board, So I think also when they're saying there's too much on his hands, I don't think that would be the case, knowing how these billionaires operate. Because you can imagine guys like Bill Gates. I mean, how many? A lot of his wealth is tied up, I think, in Berkshire Hathaway. So you can imagine how much, or rather, how many investments he has around the world, in terms of companies. Does he have time for them? I'm sure there's some he doesn't even know about, or he just gets like financial statement. Oh, Coca-Cola performed this way this year. This is their profit. I don't think maybe the specific ones he wants specific outcomes for, but those maybe will not. Maybe it's a financial institution. You just be like, there's someone there who will handle it for me. Just get my figures at the end of the day. I'm assuming though. I'm not a billionaire. Just assuming.
And speaking of boards, I think one of his criticisms for the Twitter board is that I think combined, all the board members own about 2% of Twitter. So you can't say people who own 2% are going to be representative of the interests of all the shareholders.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so there's already a problem starting there, and I think even Jack Dorsey put him onto that because he has been very supportive since the takeover talk started, man.
I mean, that's what I suspect, and that's why I suspect Jack Dorsey quit. Yeah, I suspect he had his own idea of how, because I mean, the Jack is and his personality. He doesn't seem to be too keen on censorship. He seems to share the idea of free speech. The idea of ideas need to be propagated, but maybe if it's, of course, if it's on the radical left or radical right, just David Musk pointed out a few days ago, those extremes need to be avoided. But the whole point of having free speech is the fact that there are things I will tell you until that you'll be offended by, but you still need to live in this society. That's what free speech entails.
Basically there's that. For us to talk, I have to risk offending you. I think, I don't know if you listen to Jordan Peterson, but one of his most famous quotes, I like it very. Yeah.
I hope Peterson will be nominated for CEO of Twitter by Musk.
We'll see about that. But I definitely do agree on the free speech thing. I think it's really huge for me. People, especially in the US, it's almost as if people want to. There's this. People don't understand how tyranny starts. Usually, when you think tyranny, you assume Nazis, you assume Hitler, but tyranny starts slowly by slowly. You start censoring some things just because you don't agree with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like, oh, okay, this person is saying this. I think we need to cancel them. This person is saying this. I think you need to remove them off the platform. You do that over the long term, what ends up happening is you end up creating a subculture where all these guys who have been thrown or they feel alienated from society, they create a counterculture to whatever is already going on now, and you do not want that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I'm honestly totally behind Musk with this one.
and be assured, the Democrats are gonna come out on the point of misinformation. That's my suspicion. That's how they're going to attack this, because they feel like the right is now gaining a voice again, in some ways. Because it was a big win for them. The censorship was a big win because, I mean, not only at that domestic level, but even internationally, Trump really lost a bit of his his status. Even guys who probably were behind him, sort of just, especially like by saying guys, I don't mean people like us who don't even have any say, but like maybe politicians and presidents. Countries that are behind him maybe just took a step back, but this will allow such figures to come back and be able to talk about what they need to talk about, because I find like there's a very thin line between what they're terming as misinformation and genuine freedom of speech. And you see, it's how politics is, because for them, they just want to package a message that they disagree with as misinformation. They're not allowing people to examine the facts for themselves and decide for themselves objectively, okay, is what this person from the right saying true? Or is it factual versus what this person on the left is saying? Is it factual? So it's a very thin line. I don't even know how Musk is going to handle it, because at the end of the day, the reality is there's a lot of misinformation also.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's going to be very interesting. And also, as much as people are saying, oh, we should not put this, as you call it, the public town square. Basically, they should not be under the control of any single person. As much as that's the criticism you're hearing, look, the Washington Post is owned by freaking Bezos. No one says anything about that. Basically, billionaires own stuff, and some of that stuff is going to be in the media sector, or they're going to be basically it's something they have to deal with. Zuck controls Facebook, and I think the funniest thing about this whole, Musk coming out as this, hero for the right is that the right is usually against green transition, EVs, and all that. And this is an EV CEO, the kind of person you'd expect liberals to like a lot, because he's, for environment and all that. But you find that the liberals are the ones coming for his neck, they're criticizing his work just because he doesn't agree with them. So I think that also shows the hypocrisy on both sides. Like, these guys, they claim to be pro-environment, blah, 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 but since this guy has done this one thing we don't agree with, let's just bash his whole life, even the things we supposedly agree with.
Even just debate.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And just, I think a recap of the market, as in, basically, there's been wide scale sell-offs. Stocks have been selling off. I'm talking about internationally, even locally. I think the S&P is like down 13%. Like that's the worst. It's worst performance since 1930. So
yeah, it's actually performed, but I'm seeing it's at 4,000 points at the moment.
Basically it's been a bloodbath. Also in crypto, crypto has been selling off. Also, the dollar has been rising lately. Basically, most of the times you find that when all these assets start selling off, when you see stocks selling off, people usually run for safe haven assets, and the dollar is one of them. There's also the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc, but the Japanese yen has also been selling off because Japan also has, a ton of their own problems. Basically, it's not been the best quarter. Q1 has not been the best for sure in crypto and stock markets, but we'll see how the year ends because now we have the Fed has started raising rates. They raised 25 basis points. The next month's meeting, they're actually planning on raising about 50 basis points. And the bad thing about this time is they're raising that to fight the inflation, which is the highest in like 40 years. But at the same time, the economy is slowing down. They reported Q1 GDP for the US came in at like negative 1.4%. So growth is slowing down and they're hiking rates. And that's the worst thing that can happen. So the Fed is caught in between. Do we fight inflation or do we keep rates low so that the economy doesn't crash? We don't tighten financial conditions too much. So they're between a rock and a hard place. Very interesting time. My view as far as investment is concerned, as I said at the beginning, I think it's a good time to buy. And this goes for both these tech stocks and also for crypto. Tech stocks have been selling off the whole of this year. Even the likes of Amazon missed earnings last week, and we saw sell-offs happening. So I think it's if you're planning to hold for the long term, let's say the next 10, 20, 30 years, this is definitely a good time to buy because it's a discount. And when immediately I finished uni and I started working, my main worry was the COVID recession has already passed. It's behind us. So once where can I be investing my money? You always want to invest when, things are at a discount. But I was like, pandemic is behind us. The sell-off is already done. Well, when you'll ever get a chance to get all these good stocks at a discount? And then, this Russia thing started and things started selling off. And I was like, okay, this is just the right time. I don't care about the price or anything. As long as I know, you're holding for the long term, you can just start buying now. I don't know. Have you used HISA? Have you checked out HISA app?
Yeah, I check it out. Although I've not opened an account yet. But I see people that trade in. I've seen a few complaints here and there about money not settling in accounts. So I think that's what also caused me to relax a bit. Of course, I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong. I understand the challenges of startup because it's the first of its kind in Kenya. To be able to directly buy Apple stocks and they're just seated here somewhere in Ruaka. I mean, that's crazy, man. It just shows you how interconnected the world is. But I check it out, of course, and of course what the inside guys give and the conversations they have. And get returns.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot to be done in terms of that, Maze, but I think we can. It's been a good episode. We've really gone through a lot. We've covered a lot. I think we have a lot more to cover as of next week. Of course, we're going to be covering crypto. I'm excited for that one. I'm sure Abu is too.
I'll come make my case for crypto, man.
Yeah, man. Oh, I expect you to bring it all, man. Because I think by the end of that episode, if you haven't converted Raikard, I don't know what.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Market Meter podcast. It's always a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media. We're always open to talking and growing together.
Yeah. Have a good week, guys.